Technical universities, not only architecture, this is like a really small part. How much money this is, not that you directly are an architect. Try to find out what is really important for you. Of course, it's a completely different size.
It's a town fully involved in this architecture institution. Hey guys, and today I would like you to present a new episode of Brick by Brick Honest Architecture podcast. And my guest today is Bene Wahlbrink. He is a young professional architect and also a teacher at Technical University of Berlin. So the very interesting person to talk with. And thank you for your time. Could you please introduce yourself? Because I think that person itself introducing yourself much better than anybody else.
First, I grew up near Münster, and I studied, first I did an apprenticeship as a draftsman. Because I had this high school degree, I had 6 months time between my degree for this apprenticeship and my bachelor studies. After this apprenticeship in my hometown, I went to Basel to work there for 6 months, and then I went back to Münster to start my bachelor. After my bachelor, I went to Basel again, always back and forth, to work for Herzog and Meuron. Then I continued studying in Switzerland, first in Mendrisio, and after this I started studying architecture theory and history at ETH Zurich. And before also for Herzog de Meuron, I was also working for a project in Berlin. Before I started in Mendrisio, I moved to Berlin, and I was here for 1.5 years to work on a project here.
So like I said, it's a very long way with a lot of
I'm
different
also a bit
kinds
older
of
now. Yeah.
experiences in different architecture fields. And my first question will be how your vision was created during your architecture studies and teaching, of course, and maybe do you have some kind of a person who guided you the most?
Yeah, I mean, often the people think about this master who's teaching you over the years, but the most exciting parts were actually, I guess there were certain moments which influenced my way into architecture. So, I mean, I said already I did my apprenticeship, and there was, for example, one person, and he was super open-minded. Like, he didn't say, this is too early for you, this is too difficult for you. And he was always supportive. Like, he told me about lectures in the evenings, maybe in the city. He showed me the bookshop, where I could buy a book, or the library. And he was really open to every question I had. Mm-hmm. So this was really helpful. And for example, he invited me for the first lecture I saw. And this was a lecture by Luigi Snozzi, I mean, years ago. I was super young. And maybe this, because later I studied in Mendrisio, maybe without knowing, this lecture already influenced me later deciding to go to Mendrisio, because Luigi Snozzi were living in Ticino. Later I figured out that these moments were were so influential on what I did in the future. I was really into architecture because for me architecture was a complex field which I didn't understand because I didn't have architecture in school. Now I figured out some students now here, they have a class, an architecture class in school, but I didn't know what it is actually about. So this was also a reason before I studied architecture. I wanted to understand it a bit better, and I did this apprenticeship as a draftsman. But before I wanted to study, or first I wanted to become a photographer. So I was really into photography, and then the name of my teacher at that time was Peter Kochia. He showed me a book by Julius Schulman, and then I figured out, I loved these images or this photography, and then I got more and more into architectural photography. Everything which was around me, maybe it was the moment where I bought the book from Julius Schulman, or the moment lectures, everything was influential. Or I remember the second time when I went to this bookshop, because I was also really into literature, and I asked this person, is there a book maybe I can read? I just started. And he gave me this Delirious New York book. And I mean, for the most of the people, or that like there was one person, he looked at me and said like, it's too early, like, you know. But again, Peter said, read it, and maybe in some years, read it again, you know. And maybe this was also influential that I worked later for OMA, you know, like there were like all these moments.
Actually, before my study, I also were like a photographer, but for my friends, it was like a hobby. And I bought my very first camera, and it was this camera.
Nice.
It was like my first experience with understanding how the buildings from outside working, and I think it's also created me to become like an architect, because it was very important how people in my shots feel, but it was not important how the buildings are feeling. It was much more important how the light is coming on the bricks. Bene was working in very famous firms like Herzog the Meuron or OMA, and I would like to ask you, how was the atmosphere in such a huge and renowned firm like Herzog the Meuron, for example?
First of all, like I did this, like Herzog de Meuron and OMA, I did this before finishing my architectural degree, like, and also before I was working for HHF, also in Basel. And I would say all these offices, like it was a really good time to work there. Of course, it depends on the project. Maybe it depends on the project leader. It depends where the project is. You know, do you have like different time zones? Like, are you working for the competition team? Then of course it can be stressful. But in general, I had a really good time in all these offices, and for me it was also, I went to these offices because I tried to learn from them. So when I started at HHF, I would say this was the generation after Herzog and de Meuron in Basel. Simon Hartmann, I mean, they are also now teaching, you know. Simon Hartmann became the Dean of Studies at KIT, and he was like the assistant at ETH Studio Basel, like where also Pierre de Meuron and Jacques Herzog were teaching. And it was a really specific time. When I came there before, there were like these huge projects, for example, Ruta del Peregrino, where different groups, Tatiana Bilbao from Mexico, Christum Gantenbein from Basel, like they did several pieces for this project in Mexico. Or there was this Orders 100 project where also Tatiana Bilbao, HHF, Christum Gantenbein, Fushimoto, Kirsten Geers, David van Severen, like they also developed an idea for this. And this was, for example, an invited project from Herzog and de Meuron and IYY. It was, I guess, around 2007-08. You know, it was the time where the Olympic Games were with this bird's nest. I mean, it was really, really interesting. But during that time, when I worked, for example, at HHF, it was more the way, like maybe not the project themselves, but more the way how they started as young architects. So we were 35 people in the office, and we are still, like with the most of the people, I'm still in a good contact, you know. So there were like 35 people from 12 different countries, and they created really kind of a family atmosphere. And even now, when there's an event, even tomorrow, Simon Frommenwiller, one partner of HHF, is coming to Berlin. Of course, I go there, and I want to see what they're doing today, you know, because it was such a great time working for them. And I mean, later for Herzog and de Meuron, I mean, of course, it's a completely different size. You know, when I was there were almost 400 people working.
Only in one office, or in
I don't know. They had different offices around the world, but I mean, even in Basel is a small city, and it was, I mean, there were so many people working for this office, and it was the time where they finished Elbphilharmonie. When I was working there, it was the time where they won the project for the museum in Berlin. Even I was at the beginning, like there, an intern. I really felt in the team that everybody could say something when there was a discussion. And for me, it was quite interesting to see how they developed an atmosphere, even with this huge size, that you don't feel like a person who doesn't have any right to say something. It was a completely, it was an environment where really people came together, where we had discussions together, and this was great. And at the same time, you also, need good people. For example, Jasmin Geratz, she was my project leader. We're still in good contact, and she was one of the best architects I saw who can manage a team, you know. And this is really important for these companies. Like, not only doing great projects, also how do you manage a team? This was really interesting to see.
Do you see the difference between the atmosphere in Herzog and Meuron and the atmosphere of another office, OMA or OMA?
At OMA, I worked for AMO, this
researching part.
Yes, exactly. And there, the differences was also that I worked for OMA during COVID, or COVID started. You know, so for the first month, I was sitting in Rotterdam alone in this house. I met, I guess, the team for the first time after 2 months, like in person. When I started, I really wanted to understand how they developed these kind of projects. And for me, these are architectural experiments. Of course, at OMA, I didn't work so long, and at the same time, it was COVID, so it was a completely different atmosphere, I can imagine, than before COVID.
Many of young architects will ask you, why did you leave Herzog de Meuron?
I did an apprenticeship as a draftsman, so I could draw all these plans. The person sitting next to me, at a certain point I figured out he's earning much more money than me. And I asked the project manager and saying like, hey, like what should I do? And he said, finish your architectural studies. And then I finished my master's and I didn't come back because my goal was not anymore to go back to these huge offices and maybe starting a career there, maybe becoming an architect, then maybe a project leader, and when you're lucky, you're becoming an associate after some years. But this was not really interesting for me.
And how did your mind change? So why?
Again, what I said, like these moments which influenced me a lot were the discussions with different people. It's a really small town. You have like the supermarket, you have the shop where you buy your materials to build the model, and you have this vignetta where you eat in the morning your croissant or and drinking your coffee, and in the afternoon you eat there. But in Mendrisio it was like only the architectural study. Because I was living at the beginning in the student housing in Mendrisio. We were 4. One was, he came from the United States, another person from India, the third one from China, and me from Germany. And then what do? Of course, you're coming together and you discuss about what you want to do after your degree. And after all this, we also founded there this team or the group, Panta Rhei Collaborative. And there I figured out I want to continue studying architecture theory and history. You have to decide at a certain point, are you going to start teaching somewhere when you have the opportunity? But then it's really difficult to work for a big office.
And for all of you guys, Mendrisio, it's like a small town in Switzerland, Italian part of Switzerland. And yes, it's a town fully involved in this architecture institution. And then we are coming to your part of your life where you founded Panta Rhei. And how did you come to this decision?
2 friends, Julius Grambeau and Eugenio Capuccio. Eugenio studied in, Glasgow. So he had to move back to finish his studies. And Julius was an exchange student from TU Munich. So, and we said, let's continue this discussion. You know, let's try to work together. So we met for the first time in Berlin at UdK, not far from here. And we did a competition together. It was the beginning of COVID. But we continued working together, and also we developed this format of a reading club where we invited people, but then online, because it was not possible anymore to meet because of COVID. And we invited different people to discuss about certain topics. One of them were Rory Hyde. He's now based in Australia. He wrote a book, Architects After Architecture. We invited him. And we discussed with him, or Angelika Hinterbrandner, or Frida Gran, she wrote a book about Denise Scott Brown.
It was a foundation for you to build the mindset that you would like to build something on your own.
Yes, exactly. This was the idea, but then of course, Julius, first he was in Munich, Eugenio was in Glasgow, I was in Mendrisio, then I moved to Rotterdam, working for OMA. Because of COVID, it was really difficult finding a good way how to work together. Then we were more interested not into doing architecture projects together, more in researching. In Berlin, we did a workshop at Floating University with students after like the regulations, where you already could meet on the street. So it was called the City as a University, where we decided to research different parts of Berlin because some of the students then at that time, they already studied for 1 year architecture and they never saw the university because of COVID. You said it at the beginning, this topic of sustainability, yeah. But I mean, we were interested into reusable materials, and then we developed, for example, a bench for the London Festival of Architecture out of reusable materials. But it was not our idea to design a bench. It was always a topic and a research, where we started with, and then we developed out of this. We continue working on these little projects, but at the same time also we have our own other things, you know. So Eugenio has another magazine he's running, and I mean, I'm teaching, and I also started my architecture practice.
And this is a very important aspect for all of you guys who have asked me many times that why architecture is so not online. So why can't I start working for a huge firm just online, like a, I don't know, freelancer? Because architecture is something that Bene just said. You just sit and develop your concept. You just don't have enough abilities to do it online.
You started studying architecture in the end of the pandemic?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Gott sei Dank. Yes, yes, I'm young.
Yeah, and I'm old. Of course, when you're finishing or like you're working on a detail and it takes some time, you can do it at home. But at the same time, you need this exchange with people. This is what, for me, at least for me, makes it interesting.
When I take a working student position at my previous work, so in UdK, actually I had like 10 questions per minute, and if it were per Zoom, it will be very annoying for everyone in Steam to answer them like every time I had a question. And during the time we are working together in the office, it's just like no more discussion. I just go to my boss and ask her how I should make this type of detail and so on. Yes, and it was very helpful for me to understand how everything in architecture detailing working. Yeah, I was in Ausführungsplanung, execution planning, and yes, so it won't be possible per Zoom. And I would like to go to the next chapter of your life.
Oh yeah, what was this?
Teaching in Technical
teaching.
University of Berlin. How to provide this way to young future architects.
We were talking about these moments which influenced me. And of course also my teachers influenced me a lot, you know. So when I studied in Münster, there was one professor, I was working for him as a student assistant, and he was really also open-minded. Or in Mendrisio, I was a student, I mean, almost my whole master at the studio of Kerstin Gers. And there also like the way, not only Kerstin Gers, but also the assistants, you know, how this methodology, how they were developing, like this process of developing a project was really important for me to understand, like how develop this idea of a studio program during the semester. So when you, at the beginning when I came there, I said like, yeah, it seems super easy, but when it looks super easy, there's a lot of work in the background, you know. And this is like after my studies, I figured this out. And when I developed here with the team, the first semester when I started here, then I figured out how good it actually was, you know, like how well prepared everything was. And this was for me really important to understand, like what kind of work they're putting into that it seems super easy, but it was actually not. And what I do now, and this I also learned during the time in Mendrisio, was, I mean, here we have much more students. So we have, this semester we have over 80 students in the studio, and we are 3 assistants. and one professor, and it's really, I mean, like, yeah, not difficult, but it is, not easy, you know, because I think it is quite important that also this, like now we're doing first semester bachelor students, that they have a good feeling when they start. You know, maybe some of them already have an architecture background, other people are completely new, they just moved to the city. I mean, it's a really important time for everyone. And so in general, in the team, what we developed was, an idea, we call it Love Your Studio. The studio and this idea of Love Your Studio is in a way the idea that the students are really taking part of the atmosphere. So, and this is, I think, I mean, we're doing it now already for 1 year and it works quite well. And at the same time, what I do when I talk to each group, every Thursday morning, we're first coming together, like all my groups are coming together, and we not only discuss the project and the process of the project, we also discuss about certain events in Berlin. Is there a new movie? Did somebody watch the new movie of Wim Wenders? Whatever, you know, like, did somebody go to the new exhibition somewhere? Did maybe somebody went to another city and had a good time and saw something which is important maybe for our topic.
For me, it's really, really important to create this atmosphere because as I was a first semester student, my first semester was also in Technical University of Berlin, and I had an opportunity to choose between two separate studios. Yeah. And one studio was Deco, and the second studio was, I forgot the exact name, but Umbebaut. Okay. I'm not really sure, but the point was it was like the studio of Van Rijs. Yeah. And Van Rijs, what a cool name, and so on. I didn't know him. I was quite new in this architecture era and architecture atmosphere. So I made the decision to become an architect a week before the deadline was in this Hochschulstart, in the platform. So I didn't know about architecture.
Which is totally fine. Yes,
I don't know, but this is how it is. And I just came to this first observation of studios, first day, and just like, the vibe of Deco is cooler, is more suitable to me. That's why I'm going to Deco. That's it. So,
yeah, but I mean, this is maybe the way how it works at the beginning, you know. But of course, how should you decide at the beginning? Yeah, you can maybe Google the names. You can maybe Google the website of the studio. But this was a bit like the opposite in Mendrisio. You had like all these well-known architects, and you really decide because you wanted to learn from this person. You know, and you even for each studio you even had to apply again with a portfolio to the studio. Yeah, but it was also a great time. You know, it was both is possible. And here, I mean, yeah, I think it's already good that you have a choice where to go.
Now you're basically starting your own studio. And what was the first difficult steps for you to start?
It's not that you directly are an architect. You have to become like part of the chamber. Of course, at the beginning, it is also the financial situation. Are you doing competitions? Like maybe you win a competition, maybe not. We were renting like in an old 70s office building, like one floor, renovated it. So, and there I had my desk, and of course, because we were 17 people and we shared the costs, so it was much cheaper than renting my own room. So you always saw what the people were doing, and this also motivated you to continue working on certain things, not only on projects, also maybe on a book or on a publication, and also doing events in this space. After all this thinking, how you define a structure for your own company or your own practice, it's also the way of how to make money.
And was it difficult for you to build a trust for your first employee, for example? I imagine it as a very responsible topic in the beginning.
When you employ, of course, then you have a certain responsibility. Having, for example, one employee and then a project, maybe a client is stopping a project or something, it would be for me really difficult to pay every month a salary. Interesting are the structures in these big offices where I worked before. Imagine you have to pay every month 400 people. How much money this is, how much money you have to generate for this, you know?
Yes.
So there I also figured out that these big office structures are not only interesting because of the projects, also when people doing internships there try to learn how it works, try to learn from the structure, try to learn from the project leaders how to create a team. I mean, it's super important for the future.
So what would be your one of the most important advice for a young generation? For students, maybe.
For students, I mean, first, I mean, I told you this example of Rory Hyde, who wrote this book and showed how many possibilities you have during and after your architectural degree. So maybe it is interesting, or an advice, not only focusing every semester on the project, also try to, everything which is around you is influencing you. So trying to learn from different situations. Try to find out what is really important for you. Try to define what makes you happy.
Thanks a lot for your
You're welcome.
Huge pay and to make the things more transparent for young architects that are working it. And yes, for your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
And that was Brick by Brick. And see you later in the next one. Bye bye.